続いてのセッションはステーキング・リステーキング、新たな収益機会とリスクです。今年の一大トレンドだったリステーキング、気になっている方も多いはず。早速登壇者をご紹介いたします。ジョン・パークさん、レスター・ユーロンさん、アミール・フォルーザーニさん、そして本セッションのモデレーターを務めていただくのはサント・コウさんです。The next session is Staking, Restaking, New Revenue Opportunities and Risks. Restaking has been a major trend this year, and many of you must be curious about it. Let me introduce our speakers. John Park, Lester Yulon Chui, Amir Foruzani, and the session will be moderated by Santo Ko. それでは、コウさんよろしくお願いいたします。
Good afternoon, everyone. So this panel is about staking and restaking. So before we start, I just wanted to get a sense of how many of you actually know what staking is, or roughly knows? Staking? Yeah? What about restaking? Okay, similar amount. What about liquid restaking? Okay, no one. Well, oh, wow, impressive. Okay. So with that background, today we have three very heavyweight players in the field. I'll let them introduce themselves. John, why don't you start?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Park. I run a validator company called A41, and we are active participant in the staking space and restaking space as an operator, along with P2P. We've been in this space since 2022. If you're staking your assets, please, stake with us. Thank you.
Hello, so I'm Lester. I work at p2p.org, which is, again, a friendly company of A41. We also do run validators on around 40 different networks. And obviously, we are also a great player on EigenLayer alongside with A41 and Puffer.
Hello, it's Amir, one of the core contributors at Puffer Finance. You might have heard of us because we had like a crazy growth starting off this year to almost 1.6 billion worth of ETH staked with us. We are focusing on a lot of the future capabilities that restaking and staking can bring to this space, especially Ethereum as a blockchain.
Great. John, Lester, do you want to chime in on how much asset you have on your platform? Since Amir mentioned it.
So across the 40 networks that we're running validators on, we have around 7.5 to 8 billion asset worth.
I mean, like compared to P2P, like who is a giant in the field, we're quite smaller than that. Across the 20 networks, I think we have around approximately 2.5 to 3 billion total staked assets in terms of USD.
It's very crazy that we have $3 billion level, project showing us. Okay, so I guess a segue into that, like with all those assets staked, what are the trends that you guys see in the field right now in terms of like staking, restaking, any data that you can share with us?
Yeah, today, I mean, if you look at the data on DeFi Llama, you can already see that EigenLayer, as one of the bigger restaking protocols, has around $20 billion worth of like staked ETH on its platform. It's like growing every day as well. So it's a big percentage of the total ETH staked. So we can already see that restaking is becoming this next way of generating further yield very soon. That's why it's attracting like a lot of users. That's an existing trend on restaking. I think what would be more on the future side of restaking trends is around what the new capabilities they're about to bring to the Ethereum. And we can talk about it in this as well.
Okay, with that said though, I kind of want to dial back a little bit to what is staking and, well, what is restaking and what's liquid restaking? Anyone wants to take the Sean?
I can give a like very quick overview of what staking is, where it started, and how we ended up with restaking today. I will define the liquid terms around it as well. So we went from proof of work to proof of stake on Ethereum, mostly because of the compute powers that we were overusing. Proof of stake meant putting some sort of economic security, which we call ETH today, which comes down to 32 ETH, to actually, as an economic security, to provide validation on a network, to actually vote on the state of the network, propose the next block that comes to the network, and if a validator is malicious, they get slashed for some amount of that 32 ETH. While this can be a very good low-risk APR, APY generating business, it was always hard for the smaller players, or actually the people who are not available to do the technical side of things, to get this yield. That was the birth of liquid staking, where users can participate and stake any amount of ETH to be able to get this APY. Restaking is an extension of staking. It's an extension of programmable slashing. Rather than just securing Ethereum network, you can then use your asset to go further secure other dApps, other programs, other consensus mechanisms. That's where restaking came out. Similar to staking, since it has a high barrier of entry in technical implementation, liquid restaking protocols, or LRTs, were implemented to abstract away the complexity for the normal day-to-day user to be able to take advantage of this return. So you can think of it as just an upgraded version of liquid staking.
Anything to add?
I mean, Amir's explanation was pretty great, but I feel like if I have to add something, I think there is like the perception in terms of like angle of perception that users of like liquid staking or liquid restaking platforms have, and the services that are trying to build on top of restaking layer, or we call it shared security layer, are quite different. What I mean by that is like we call it AVSs, and those AVSs are trying to build on top of the shared security layer in order to get the security off from such a huge economic security that ETH ecosystem or ETH chain, Ethereum network actually provides. Whereas a lot of the users don't really think about that. It's more so inclined towards, do we get more yield? Like how much percentage do we get? Like do we make more money? And I think it was reflected in the trend. Like if we go back to the last question, trend-wise, the retailers were so into this points program. Like as we all can remember, like starting from the earlier this year, I think there was a points program craze, and there were so many so-called liquid restaking protocols that were driving that, like and EtherFi, and like there are so many other protocols as well, and so it's I guess it could be operator's job or it could be liquid restaking protocol's job, but like filling up that gap and filling up the crevice that exists between like the people who are staking their assets and like those of us who are sustaining the ecosystem and those who are building on top of the shared security layer should be somehow filled, or else I think it's just going to be perceived as just another Ponzi or just another like financial product in a way. So I guess like we do have that burden since we are, I would say, eating off of that shared security layer as an operator.
And one last thing that I would like to add is that since we're asking about liquid restaking and liquid staking tokens, right? I think we kind of missed the word liquid here for the retail users, in case you don't know. So basically what Puffer or other LSD or LRT providers are giving is the liquidity to the users. Because obviously the 32 ETH barrier is one thing that you mentioned, but also even for like networks like Solana, for Sui, which do not have such a high barrier, the LST still are essential to users, because basically what they're doing right now is like a bank, right? They're printing out receipts for the people who staked so they could use this liquid in somewhere else, in DeFi protocols and whatever, to just unlock the liquidity, which is also very, very crucial in the market, I would say.
Okay, wonderful. I think that's a very good segue into with the trend that we've seen, and of course we all know right now what staking, restaking, liquid restaking is. Let's talk about some opportunities that exist in the field right now. Like, yeah, please share your thought.
I can go and start by really capitalizing on what John said, especially on the yield side. There is a lot of opportunities that haven't been explored in restaking right now. Many ABSs that are currently out there are more or so the same, but there are very exciting ABSs yet to come out, and I know like some teams are already working on many exciting ABSs. We've been talking about this ever since the start of Puffer, that we would like to be much more integrated in the infrastructure of the Ethereum as a whole. That's where we always talked about launching our own rollup. That's our next very exciting upgrade that is coming, that we're sort of teasing about on our Twitter and other places, but I can like release it here since it's a smaller audience. We're actually exploring launching our own based app chain and based app chain ecosystem. This based app chain has these capabilities of creating, like getting rid of liquidity fragmentation that we currently have on the rollup ecosystem. I would not get too much into the technical side of it. We're going to have a lot of explanations around how it's going to be good. Long story short, we're going to get the 100 millisecond transactions enabled for Ethereum, which is faster than a lot of other competing ones. Also, at the same time, there's going to be much better composability across this rollup stack. What, in terms of opportunity it enables to Puffer as a protocol is that it gets to run this concept of pre-confirmations. This can possibly be its own ABS. That can actually be a high generating yield ABS because it is directly tied to the transactions that the users are submitting. When the protocol earnings go higher, it means the users that stake their ETH, their earnings on the Puff ETH is going to go higher. At the same time, there is an opportunity for the users to now participate in our rollup stack. The way we're designing the rollup stack, it's going to have native yield. Native yield means almost zero gas costs for the users. This is going to enable and actually get rid of one of the two big barriers of entry in blockchain. One was always paying gas, interacting with the smart contracts, and actually doing all these transactions that are kind of complicated for the users. And two, being slow. Once we go from 12 second to 100 millisecond, we are strictly much, much faster, and we can get to the dream of being like a Visa, being like other things. So these are like the exciting stuff that at Puffer we're like exploring currently.
Amir, I kind of have a question why you mentioned that. Is that purely enabled by, the fact that we have restaking right now, or like, is that something that can be done without restaking?
Yes, if you want to dive into the like, sort of like deep implementations, yes, it can be done without the current restaking architecture. However, it's much easier to do it with the current restaking. What I would say enables us as a permissionless liquid restaking protocol is having this diverse set of validators. Permissionlessness enabled us to collaborate with P2P, with A41, with many more. A lot more don't even have to ask us if they want to participate in Puffer as a validator. That's another big value that we have since we are operating on the bottom layer of this infrastructure stack. That's where we're building more and more on it, including the base rollups, more restaking applications, and many more around it.
Okay, so it does sound like restaking enables a different, make it easier so people can build different services and have the economy guarantee or security, right? What else, what other opportunities are out there you see, John or Lester, on either staking or restaking?
I guess there are multiple opportunities that will like stem out whenever there is like a new idea kicks in this industry. So when the liquid staking started and when players like Lido and METH kind of took into place, it gave birth to a new set of players like A41 to like come into the space and rise up. I think from a pure operator's perspective, with the liquid restaking coming in and with like platforms that is like permissionless, like Puffer coming in, I feel like there's gonna be a new set of operators that will be coming into the scene as like top 25 or top 20 like operators. So I guess from an incumbent's perspective, from like P2P, it will be a challenge. From new operators' perspective, I think it will be more of an opportunity. So I guess there's like when the new tide comes in, there's always going to be new players. Some of them will be weeded out, but some of the incumbents may be weeded out as well. So that's the operator's perspective. And from institutional's perspective, in terms of money, like who are deploying money, I guess liquid restaking could also provide a opportunity for them to pick out the LRTs that's gonna win the market, like maybe Puffer will, and also like picking out AVSs that will be going on top of like certain LRTs, and those LRTs choosing which AVSs as like designated AVS sets would also like create like a unique opportunity for certain institutions that have betted on those successful like LRTs and AVSs to be more successful. So I see those two as like big opportunities in the crypto scene as an operator and from the investor point of view.
Yeah, for myself, I think I would break this in half, like just like you did. On the decentralization of the operator selections that Puffer is doing, what I see is good is that, yes, obviously for like players like us who are already in the field already, that might be a challenge, but at the same time, it's also an opportunity because basically what we're trying to do here is there are two aspects, right? It's always going to be permissioned, permissionless, trusted, trustless, and basically what we are doing here right now is going permissionless and trustless. You basically bring in the whole slashing risk, performance risk into the validators ourselves, and we could decide if we want to get in. We would be the sole person or the sole entity to just look at the risk and say, okay, this is the risk that we can accept. We think that we're going to be doing better than the average. That's why it's going to be beneficial for us. And if we cannot do better than the average, then it's a natural selection. We just got vetted out. Compared to some more permissioned protocols that has like probably vetted contracts into the vetted set, or even for some protocols that has like partly permission or partly permissionless, which kind of solves the slashing problem, but not the performance problem. Basically, this idea is so brilliant that it solves both things. So this is a good thing that actually brings decentralizations into the market, which is good for the whole liquid staking in a whole. Because let's say if, like Amir always says, right? If SEC decides to come after one of the larger players in the field, and as I said earlier, right, the LSTs and LRTs are basically printing out monies like banks for the receipts. If they got their back targeted by the SECs, then that's going to be a problem. So decentralization is actually very important here. As for, restaking, the opportunity side of things, like obviously I would totally agree with what you said. Like basically we are just giving more opportunity for people who do not even have the capital to show their coins. Let's say if Chainlink wasn't around here, and there's another Chainlink who has a really great idea who did not have the capital to show their coins. How would they build a protocol that relies on such huge security and networking, right? And with restaking, that would make it possible. I would just not take so much of everyone's time. I'll leave it back to Daniel.
Yeah, I think those are very good answers, I guess. And with that said, I feel like for normal people like us, right? Like you have staking, and then you are restaking your liquid staking token. There's several layers of companies or projects or protocols that you need to trust for this to work, right? So with this said, I want to get into the risk of it. What do you see as risks for restaking or liquid restaking in general?
Yeah, so I can start by unwrapping things from the base layer. Any restaking protocols needs staking to work. Staking on Ethereum. Now, what are the risks on staking Ethereum? Basically, the biggest risks are slashing, and of course inactivity. As a staker that stakes at a liquid staking protocol, you want to have some sort of a trust to the operators that are operating honestly and not effectively losing your money. That's where at Puffer it took us the longest time to design out-of-protocol improvements to make that as trustless as possible, meaning that if a slashing happens, the user funds are safe. If an inactivity occurs, the user funds are also safe. At the same time, another section that took us longer to even design for is making it for anyone to participate in it, either from the staking side or from the operator side, which is on the permissionless side. So we have addressed things on the staking side of things. Now we have added another layer of complexity. We made safe the staking side, now we have to make safe the restaking side. Complexities of AVSs right now haven't risen to a level that people should be extremely worried because the slashing is not live. But we do have plans for when the slashing goes live. When slashing goes live, AVSs have to be vetted carefully through a risk management platform. It can be us, a committee of ourselves, a committee of professionals like Gauntlet, Netherminds, Ethereum Foundations, that actually decides what AVS good, what AVS malicious, what AVS risk is too bad for our users, what AVS risk is good. On top of all of this, since we specialize on designing anti-slashers and basically a lot of research and technical-oriented implementations, we're going to only opt into AVSs that actually have anti-slashing enabled, either to our architecture or to our partners' architectures. So yes, there are complicated layers of risk that as an LRT protocol, we are very responsible to addressing to make this trustless connection between the folks that have asset and the folks that have infrastructure to run the asset to make money for them. And that's where our main focus at Puffer has been during the past year. One of the reasons that our go-to market was slightly later than our competitors was also that, because we were spending so much time designing for this system.
Lester and John, you have anything to add?
I mean, I just want to quickly follow up on Puffer, like Amir's point on the design. As an operator that have participated in both permissioned and permissionless protocols, I feel like Puffer's design was quite unique and peculiar, that they considered or took into account of both operators and users at the same time with the idea of smoothing, in terms of liquid staking. So we're actively looking forward for Puffer version 2 to come out and also implement LRT with it. Going back to the risk question, as an operator, I think we're talking about or addressing very hypothetical risks at this moment, because if you look at AVSs, basically we're all AVS operators just like P2P, and so far our experience is that none of the AVSs are actually giving us yield, nor there is no slashing implementations. However, when the and as Amir pointed out, there should be a time when the slashing implementations actually do kick in, we will need anti-slashing to be sort of a norm. But for now, we don't really. It's not really about the risks that we're more worried about. It's about the opportunities that we could actually miss as an operator. Is more of a concern that I have. So I guess depends on the timing of when we are talking about this restaking era or liquid restaking era. The risks that we're going to be seeing is going to be different. For now, I think it's about whether we're going to miss it or not is more of a risk that I think we're facing as an ecosystem, as a whole network.
Yeah, and touching more on the risk, obviously there are risks gonna moving forward, but also wanted to kind of talk about how would we mitigate from this. I guess that's probably more concerning. First of all, obviously for the risk side, obviously the slashing risk is one thing, and if the AVSs are actually giving enough yields are going to be the second thing, right? For the first thing about the slashing wise, yes, there would be slashing, and sometimes the slashing conditions might not be favorable, but at the same time, at least what we are doing so far is that we're actually drawing the data. We have a new product called Lambda, And we're working with Egg and DA to draw the data for them in terms of like having a more proactive way instead of like on top of what like things like Puffer is doing. And at the same time, we're also working with like Chaos Labs to provide more data for the operator side of things. And then on the yield side of things, I think that's just people are just going to find the market equilibrium, right? And obviously for slashing things, Realm, Nexus Mutual, I know that they are looking into providing these like slashing insurance as well. So I think that's something that at least there are ways to mitigate them. So we shouldn't be too concerned. But obviously we all, as the industrial players, we should be like doing something proactive as well.
Just one comment to add on that yield part. I think one of the risks that we may face in the near future or like longer future is that what if, I don't know, like what if there's not enough ABSs that are creating revenue that could actually boost yields for LRTs is I think it's a realistic concern that we may have to be quite vigilant about as we see more and more ABSs that are coming to life.
Okay, cool. I think that's a lot of great points. It sounds like restaking enables a new different set of AVSs and enable it to be easier for people to build like new secured services, right? But on the flip side, are AVS enough to pay for the security that was staked in, or there's also permission issue, trust issue across this the table. So I think that concludes this section. So with 4 minutes left, I would like to open the floor to the audience and see if anybody has any questions that they want to ask. Or we're good? We're all good? No questions? Really? Okay. Anything that you want to add? We have 4 more minutes.
We got an on-stage question, like John threw it, like when is Puffer TGE? Yeah, I would like to maybe like give some stats on where Puffer is going. Thank you all, like the users who are here maybe today, who have been on this journey of Puffer Quest. If you would like to participate in Puffer Quest, go to quest.puffer.fi. We're about to launch our season finale, which is our chapter 5, which is around this concept of essentially end-game concept for Ethereum, which is bringing transaction cost to 0 and also doing the 100 millisecond transactions using base rollups. If you would like to participate, keep up with our Twitter as well, which is puffer_finance, and give us a follow there too.
All right, great. Yeah, so that concludes the session. Thank you all.
ありがとうございました。皆様、もう一度大きな拍手をお願いいたします。